I should have known the day would feel different the moment Thompson messaged me. Need to hit the supplier today. You in? No emojis, no context. Just straight up Thompson. That was him. Direct, no fluff, and somehow still the most complicated person I knew. I said yes without thinking, like I always did when it came to him. I told myself it was because I had the day off, that I didn't have anything better to do. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It was always more when it came to Thompson. We've been friends since college. He was that guy. Masculine, cocky in a harmless way, the type who could charm a room without trying. He wasn't a meathead or a bro, but he had this energy, like he belonged in a music video where girls in denim shorts chased after him. And they did. All the time. And he played into it, laughed it off, flirted back like it was a reflex. But with me it was different. Always was. He'd talk to me about things he didn't share with anyone else. About his dad, his dreams, his fear of being stuck in a boring life. He'd get deep, vulnerable. And I'd listen, hang on to every word, pretending I didn't want to reach across the space between us and touch his hand when he got quiet. So when I climbed into his car that afternoon, the air already smelled like too much sun and engine grease, I knew I was in trouble. He was wearing a faded black t-shirt, stretched just enough around his chest, and a pair of light jeans with a rip at the knee. His forearms were tan, veined, and unapologetically distracting. "You good?" he asked, eyes flicking toward me, before locking on the road again. "Yeah," I lied. "You just picking up paint or couple tiles? Maybe check some lighting stuff. I don't know. Gotta see what they have." His voice was casual, but something about the way he shifted in his seat made me think he was nervous too. Or maybe I was just reading into it again. I was good at that, finding hope in nothing. We pulled into the tiny lot behind Singh's Hardware, a place that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 80s. The go-down sat just behind the store, a low, boxy structure that looked half abandoned. Dust hung in the air like it had been waiting for us. "Here we are," Thompson said, grabbing the keys from the ignition. "Get ready to inhale 2 decades worth of rust and regret." I laughed. "Sounds like your dating history." "Ouch," he grinned, play-punching my shoulder. "You're funny when you try." That touch, his knuckles against my arm, shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. It always did. Inside the go-down, it was dim and quiet. Just rows of metal shelves, wooden crates, and old fluorescent lights that buzzed like they were trying to stay alive. No other customers, no employees in sight. Creepy, right? Thompson said, walking ahead of me, his back lit by slivers of dusty sunlight slicing through the high windows. I nodded, watching the way his shirt clung to his back when he stretched to read a label. Thompson had no idea what he did to me. Or maybe he did. And that was the most dangerous part of it all. I told myself to focus. Help him find what he came for. Don't get lost in your head. But with him, I was always one look, one laugh, one innocent touch away from losing control, and today, I could already feel the line between us starting to blur. People always assumed Thompson and I were opposites, and maybe we were. He was loud when I was quiet. He acted before thinking. I overthought everything. But what no one ever saw was how close we really were. Close in ways that didn't always make sense, especially to me. He'd crash at my place after late nights out, claiming he was too tired to drive. I never questioned it. Not even when he started sleeping without a shirt, sprawled out on my couch like it was his own bed, like his skin wasn't driving me insane. He'd yawn in the morning, stretch, scratch his chest absently while I stared at the ceiling and begged myself not to look. It wasn't just the physical stuff. It was the emotional intimacy that messed with me more. Those 1 a.m. phone calls when he couldn't sleep. The times he showed up at my place just to talk about how empty he felt, how everyone thought he was fine when he wasn't, how being wanted by so many people still made him feel alone. I don't know, man. Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life, he said once, lying on my rug with a bottle of beer resting on his stomach. Like, people expect me to be this guy, and I'm just pretending. I wanted to ask him who he really was, but I didn't. Because if he was pretending, I didn't want to risk being the reason he stopped. Sometimes I wonder if I made it. All up. If I twisted every moment, every look, into something it wasn't. But there were things I couldn't explain away. Like that party last winter. It was cold, loud, packed with people. Thompson had downed more drinks than usual. We were standing on the balcony, him swaying slightly, his breath forming little clouds in the air. He leaned against me, his shoulder brushing mine. And suddenly, his fingers laced with mine, not tight, not dramatic, just there, casual, intentional. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, terrified that if I said anything, the moment would shatter. He didn't look at me. He just held my hand and kept talking about some girl who'd tried to kiss him earlier. Then, mid-sentence, he dropped my hand like it had never happened and went back inside. And I stood there, hands still tingling, wondering if I'd imagined the whole thing. That moment replayed in my head more times than I'd admit. I told myself it was the alcohol, that maybe he'd confused me for someone else, that maybe I wanted it so badly. I hallucinated the warmth of his hand in mine. But it wasn't just that. There were dozens of tiny moments like it, moments that felt like static in the air, like the charge right before lightning hits. He'd fix my collar, ruffle my hair, let his hand linger on my back a little too long when we hugged. Once, he called me beautiful, just slipped it into conversation like it was nothing. Who does that? What straight guy calls his best friend beautiful with that kind of softness in his voice? And yet he dated girls, talked about them, slept with them, laughed. When I teased him about being a flirt, so I kept quiet. I didn't ask, I didn't lean in. I let the space between us fill with unspoken things, afraid that if I named them, I'd lose him. Because the truth was, Thompson wasn't just my best friend. He was home. And risking that felt like jumping off a cliff with no guarantee he'd catch me. Being near him was like holding a lit match, warm, glowing, and always one breath away from burning me alive. I think part of me believed we'd stay in that limbo forever. Close enough to touch, but never crossing the line. But that day in the go-down, something shifted. And once that line started to blur, I knew there was no going back. The second we stepped inside, the air shifted. It was quiet. Still. Dust floated through beams of light from high-up windows, giving everything a hazy, golden blur. The go-down stretched long and narrow, filled with shelves, crates, and that faint scent of metal and time. No employees, no sounds, just our footsteps and the occasional creak of wood under our shoes. Place looks like it could be in a horror movie, Thompson said, stepping ahead of me. His voice echoed a little. I chuckled, but my voice felt tight in my throat. You afraid of ghosts now? Nah, he grinned, glancing back at me over his shoulder. Just don't want to end up on a true crime podcast. He wandered deeper, in, and I followed, always did. He moved with that easy confidence of someone who felt at home anywhere, even in a place that looked like it hadn't been cleaned in a decade. His body stretched as he lifted a box to peek at the label underneath, muscles flexing through his thin shirt, his jeans riding just enough to show the curve of his lower back when he bent forward. And I hated myself a little for noticing. But I always noticed. He kept talking, some joke about the boxes being older than both of us combined, but I barely heard it. I was watching his hands, the way they gripped the cardboard, the smudge of dust on his neck, the way sweat was beginning to form near his collar. The air was warm and stale, but the heat I felt wasn't from the room. Then, without warning, he grabbed a light, empty box and chucked it at me. Catch! It hit my chest with a soft thump, and I laughed, more out of shock than anything. Seriously? What? You looked spaced out, thought I lost you. You're annoying, I said, throwing it back at him. He caught it with one hand, tossed it aside, and suddenly lunged at me like we were 10-year-olds wrestling in someone's backyard. We collided gently, laughing, pushing, our bodies bumping in the narrow aisle between crates. It was stupid, childish, and intimate in a way that made my skin buzz. Admit it, he said, gripping my shoulders. You'd die in a horror movie. You're the sensitive guy. You'd try to reason with the ghost and get eaten first. I'd outlive you and steal your truck, I shot back. He laughed, deep and easy, and I couldn't stop smiling. His hands were still on my shoulders. Mine had naturally landed on his waist during the playful scuffle. Neither of us moved. That's when it happened. Something shifted. His laughter faded. The air around us thickened, and he didn't let go. He just stood there, holding me, looking at me. His eyes on mine like they were searching for something, or asking. And I didn't breathe. I couldn't. The moment was so fragile, it felt like blinking might break it. His chest rose and fell slowly. Mine was trying to keep up. His hand slid from my shoulder down my arm, fingers trailing like they didn't mean to. And still he didn't speak. Just that stare, that closeness, that tension between us that had always been there. Loud now. Undeniable. It wasn't just the heat in the room. It was him. All of him. Right there. Close. Watching me like he wanted something but didn't know how to ask. "Thompson," I started, not sure what I was even trying to say. His eyes flicked to my lips, just for a second. But it was enough. He stepped back suddenly, cleared his throat. "We should, find that lighting section." Just like that, the moment snapped. Gone. But the air still burned. My skin still tingled. And nothing felt the same. I nodded, forcing a casual tone. "Yeah, right, lighting." We walked in silence for a few minutes. But the weight of that almost touch, almost kiss, almost something hung heavy between us. He acted normal, whistling, scanning shelves, tapping on boxes like nothing had happened. But I could tell his hands were shaking just slightly. And mine were already missing the feel of him. We found the lights. Or at least, Thompson pretended to look through a few half-open boxes marked with dusty labels while I stood there, trying to keep my breathing normal. But neither of us was focused anymore. The tension was a living thing now, thick, quiet, waiting. He stopped suddenly, his back to me, shoulders tense. For a long second he didn't move. Then he said softly, "Hey, can I ask you something?" His voice was different, careful, laced with something that made my chest tighten. "Yeah," I said, even though I wasn't sure I wanted the question. He turned, slower than usual. His eyes found mine, uncertain but direct, like he was stepping toward the edge of something neither of us could name. "Do you ever—" he started, then stopped, rubbed the back of his neck, like he always did when he was nervous. "Do you ever feel weird about us?" My heart stopped. Then it raced. I opened my mouth, closed it again. The word weird echoed too loud. My first instinct was to lie, to laugh it off, to protect myself, to protect him. But then I saw his face. He wasn't teasing. He was asking. I took a shaky breath. "Yeah," I said. "Sometimes I think about us. I can't help it." The silence between us rang loud. My heart was thudding in my ears. I'd said it. Finally. After all the what-ifs and almosts and maybes, it was out there now, fragile and real. Thompson didn't freak out. He didn't laugh. Or walk away. He stepped closer. Just one small step, but it felt huge. His voice dropped, to barely a whisper. "I've thought about it too." I froze. "What?" I breathed. "I don't know what it means," he said, eyes flicking to mine, then down, then back again. "But I've thought about it. More than once." My whole body felt like it was buzzing. Alive, afraid, hopeful, terrified. He reached up, slowly, like he wasn't sure he was allowed. His fingers hovered near my face before they landed, just barely on my cheek. His thumb brushed my skin like it was something sacred. I closed my eyes, just for a second, just to feel it. "Is this okay?" he whispered. I nodded. He stepped in until our chests were almost touching. His breath was warm, uneven. When his lips met mine, I'd remember later. It wasn't loud. It was a question, a confession, a dare. And I answered all of it, with a kiss. It started slow. Our mouths met like they weren't sure what to do, like they were afraid to ruin the moment by rushing it. His lips were softer than I expected. Warm. Careful. We kissed like we were crossing a wire one step at a time, knowing one wrong move could send everything crashing. But then something changed. His hands cupped my face, fingers trembling. Mine slid around his back, pulling him closer without even meaning to. The kiss deepened. Gentle became urgent. Careful became hungry. It wasn't about sex. It was about finally knowing, feeling, confirming what neither of us had dared to say out loud. He whispered my name against my mouth. Matt. The sound of it broke something open inside me. I kissed him harder. Slower. Let my hands trace his sides, his back, the curve of his neck. I felt him shiver. He touched my waist like he'd been wanting to for years. We didn't take everything off. We didn't need to. Just the slight lift of a shirt. Just the slide of skin against skin. Touches. That said, I see you. I feel this too. His forehead rested against mine. Our breaths tangled. His fingers were laced with mine. I don't know what happens after this, he whispered, eyes closed. Me neither, I said. But in that moment, I didn't care. All I knew was that the line had been crossed. Gently, irrevocably. And I never wanted to go back to the way things were before. He kissed me again, slower this time. Like we had all the time in the world, and for those few minutes in that forgotten go-down with dust floating around us like confetti, we did. We had everything. When our lips finally parted, the world felt different. Like something had tilted and hadn't quite righted itself. Thompson stepped back first. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at the floor like the ground had started to spin. I waited, heart pounding, still feeling the heat of his hands on my skin, the echo of his voice in my ear. Then he said, barely audible, I don't know what that was. 3 seconds. That's how long it took for my chest to cave in. I swallowed hard. Yeah, me neither. He ran a hand through his hair, agitated, eyes darting everywhere but at me. I need air, he muttered, turning toward the entrance. Thompson, I called out, but he didn't stop. Just pushed the door open and walked into the sunlight like it might burn whatever just happened out of him. I stood there alone, in that dusty space that still smelled like us. Like sweat, and nerves, and something way too close to love. I didn't know if I should follow him. I didn't know if he wanted me to. Eventually, I gathered myself, brushed the dust off my jeans, stepped outside, blinking at the light that felt too bright for what I was feeling. He was already by the truck, arms crossed, eyes on the road. We didn't speak the entire ride back. The engine hummed. The tires rolled beneath us. Outside, the town passed in blurs. Houses, people, normal life carrying on like mine hadn't just cracked open. I watched him from the passenger seat. He kept one hand on the wheel, the other clenched on his knee. He didn't look at me once. The silence between us was louder than the moans we'd just shared. He looked out the window. I looked at him. And neither of us said a word. I wanted to say something. Anything. But what could I possibly say that wouldn't make it worse? I stared at my hands. The same hands that had touched his skin, gripped his shirt, held his face like it meant something. Now they just sat there, useless. In my lap, my thoughts spiraled. Had I misread it all? Did he regret it? Had I just destroyed the only real friendship I ever had? But beneath the panic, something else lived. Quiet but steady. I didn't regret it. Not a second of it. Because in those moments, he was mine. Fully. Silently. And no matter what came next, no one could take that from me. That night, I lay in bed with the lights off, eyes wide open. The ceiling was just a ceiling, but I stared at it like it might give me answers. My mind replayed every second in that go-down. His touch, his kiss, his voice when he whispered my name. And then, the way he looked away from me like it had never happened. The silence since we parted felt colder than anything I'd ever known. I spiraled, of course. Was it a mistake? Had I ruined us? Did he hate me now? Hate himself? I reached for my phone more times than I could count, thumbs hovering over the screen with messages I'd write and delete again and again. Are we okay? I'm sorry if I made things weird. Say something, please. But I never sent any of them. I didn't want to scare him off more than I already had. Then, just past midnight, my phone buzzed. One message. You free tomorrow? I think we should talk. My heart flipped. Before I could even process it, another message popped up. Also, I haven't stopped thinking about you. I stared at the screen, chest tightening in a different way now. Not fear, not regret. Something closer to relief. To want. To the tiniest flicker of maybe. A smile spread across my face, slow and unsure but real. He didn't say it would be easy. He didn't say what he wanted. But he said something, and that was enough. For now. Because maybe things were messy. Maybe they didn't make sense, but he was still here, still reaching, still feeling. Whatever this thing between us was, it was alive. And for the first time, I wasn't scared of it. And tomorrow, I'd find out what came next.